and welcome to another edition of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I am talking with, wow, this is going to be a fun one, Tonya Eberhart and Michael Carr from Brand Phase. How are you two doing today?
Hey, Michael. So glad to be here. We're doing great.
Fantastic. Every day's Saturday.
Amen, amen, amen. When you do what you love to do, there is no work, right? So, Tonya and Michael run Brandface, a company you're going to learn a lot more about it. They are branding specialists. And when I was doing my research and I went to the website, you get this line on your website that I just love. I wish I would have thought of it. It's people don't do business with a logo. They do business with a person. And I want to dive into that because so many times when we think about brand and things, we think about colors and font sizes and all of that, which at one level they're important, but they don't hold a candle to your personal brand and all of that. So that's what we're going to be talking about, folks. It's going to be an exciting ride. So, Michael, Tonya, tell me, how in the world did y'all get doing what you're doing today?
All right. Well, let's dial it all the way
Let's
back to
do it.
1988, Michael.
All right.
And actually, I entered the media world. I was selling vacuum cleaners door to door to pay my way through college, and got hired away by somebody in the media world. And as a vacuum cleaner salesperson door to door, I kind of had to learn to tell my own story to get in the door, because you can't just walk up to somebody and say, "Well, get out your wallet. I'm here with your vacuum," right?
Yeah.
So once I got into the media world, though, everything was leveled up. And immediately I noticed nobody wanted to meet with me. They didn't even want to see me coming, right? Unless I had tickets to the big game or a free lunch. I was young, I was green, didn't know what I was doing. But I knew one thing: I did not like that response. And so I thought, if I want to be perceived differently, I have to change the way I present myself. And so I began to present myself and approach my clients very differently. I became one of the first radio salespeople in the country to have my own website. And after about a year of that and chugging away at that, it was working really, really well for me, to the point where I thought, hey, if this works for me, maybe it can work for my clients. So I began around 89 or 90, taking my clients one by one into the studio and helping them craft their own story and have compelling messaging in their advertising and position themselves and things like that. And that's actually been a common thread through my entire career, is really helping people with that personal branding message. Fast forward all the way to 2013, that became a sole focus for me, and Brand Face was founded at that point in time. And all we do is personal branding for coaches, consultants, and experts. And that is around the same time that I met this gentleman, and I will let him pick up from there.
All right.
Yeah, my background's different. I am an auctioneer by trade, and that's my first passion, first love, mostly cars and real estate.
Yeah.
And so I spent the first 10 years of my career doing that, being a contract auctioneer. I opened up a real estate brokerage in 2000, but I really just did it for my own investments and to help my family members or something like that. I didn't have an idea that I would be in the real estate business or as a broker, growing a brokerage. And then the mortgage debacle hit in 2006. It
Yeah.
started six,
Yeah.
seven, right? It was really bad, eight, nine, 10. And sometime around 2006, I got contacted by a company out of Irvine, California, and we teamed together with my brokerage license in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and we did an auction in Atlanta. It was very successful, 2006. And so we said, we need to do this all across the country. We formalized a plan and then grew into what is now auction.com. I ended up licensed in 35 states, 30 states, ended up selling property in 35 states. And spent, the next 7 years of my life on a plane and in a hotel room. And then I came back when auctioneers are always working themselves out of a job, which we did. I came back to my little bitty hometown here north of Atlanta, and I bought a piece of property. I thought, well, I'm going to retire. I'm just going to, buy and sell some properties. The market's coming back. Everything's looking up. So everything's going to be good. And the lady I worked with, she said, hey, we worked really good together on this deal. Let's open up a brokerage in this little bitty town of Jefferson. There's not any competition. And I thought, well, I'll do it if you'll help me. And she agreed. And then 2 weeks into it, she said, hey, our marketing stinks. We need help. And my niece happens to be in the marketing business. She has, this full turnkey marketing business, and you need to call her. And I didn't do it, and I'll just put it off. And I was still living in California. I had a place here, a place in California. I was back and forth, back and forth. Well, finally I get this phone call from her, and she's like, I don't know if I'm supposed to call you. You're supposed to call me, but here I am. And I was ugly to her, Mike. I was. I told her, I said, look, I've already had 4 people just like you come to my door, and I don't need another one. And she said, you have never met anybody like me, and nobody has the formula I have. And really, you're dumb if you don't hire me, is what it boiled down to. So I gave her about 2 more weeks of grief. And then finally, she's just in frustration said, I've told you everything I know, and you're just going to have to trust me from here. And I said, well, I was going to hire you 2 weeks ago. I just made it harder on you. And we've been best friends ever since. But here's the takeaway. She sold me marketing, but she gave me branding. And 20 years of being in this business, I was a guy that was out here spending money. I was a promoter, but I learned from the best of the best about being a promoter, and I wasn't afraid to spend money on advertising. But I was under the thought process, like so many people, that where's the ROI? Throw it against the wall and hope it sticks. And she taught me branding that changed everything. And in our company, our brokerage exploded. We got a boutique brokerage here. We have some years doubled and one year quadrupled our income doing the brand face principles that we teach now to authors, coaches, speakers, podcasters, real estate agents, veterinarians, doctors, lawyers,
right? Because branding works for anybody.
Anybody.
Right? Because,
sure does.
So, well, we know each other well enough. This is my passion, right? If I weren't doing what I was doing in creating books, which I actually do a little bit of branding in that because I get their story, but y'all take it to the next level. And that's really what I want you to just dive into when we talk personal branding and things. Unpack for the audience, what are we talking about when somebody comes to you? What's that process and what's that deliverable to go, wow, I never thought of that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd like to do is kind of dispel a big myth. And that is the fact that you alluded to it earlier. A logo, nice photo, slick tagline is a brand. It is not a brand, not even close. Those are 3 different, what I call branding elements, right? But a brand is actually an entire ecosystem. And we look at 77 different criteria when we build a personal brand. Why do we do that? Because that's exactly what it takes to make it profitable. And that's the key, right? Yeah. If you were to ask me what sets you guys apart from all the other branding companies in the world, it's like we build a comprehensive brand that is actually designed to be profitable. Anybody can build a pretty brand, but unless it's purposeful and profitable, it's actually pretty pointless. And so,
preach.
and so that's like really the thing you have to dispel first to get people to understand, that logo is not your brand, right? So, and then, then we have this 3-step process just to simplify it and take people through.
Yeah, it's define, develop, and display. And so everything that we do, no matter how much esoteric information is involved in it, it always boils down to those 3 things: define, develop, and display. And the first D is we define what it is that sets you apart and then also define your ideal customer. And so we can, when we go to the next phase, we know who we're talking to and what we're saying to them.
In that defined phase, the reason we gather that information is so we can position you properly in that space, right? Positioning is everything. And it's that magic bridge, Michael, between what do your clients, your ideal clients really want and need, and what sets you apart in that space so that you are significant and meaningful to them and there's no one like you. And that's building that bridge to how we position our clients. So once we finish that defined phase is complete, we move into development. So develop means usually we're looking at 2 main things in the development phase: brand messaging or your story, and brand imagery or that look and feel of the brand. That's where the logos and colors and things like that come in. But the very first thing we have to do is is pull together that brand messaging, that core brand messaging. It has to answer these 5 critical questions. Exactly who do you serve? exactly how do you serve them? What qualifies you to serve them? How does it make their life better? And what makes you different from everybody else who's also trying to serve your customer, right? I know it's a lot, it's a mouthful, right? But that's why we do it all for our clients. We don't have them come in and write their own stuff. We actually take care of it all for them. But when we get that dialed in, all of the language, elevator pitch, something we coined called sound bites, highlights of your brand at a glance, bio, things like that, then we move into what that brand looks like. Now, here's the fun part. Most of the time when you say to somebody, oh, it's time to go like build your brand or rebuild your brand or whatever, they'll go hire one of these three people, if not all three: a website designer, they'll hire a photographer, and they'll hire a logo designer, right?
Oh, gotcha.
But, and that's all great. Those are great things to do, but they come toward the end of that, the back half of that journey, because how do you know what that logo needs to portray? What image are you trying to portray in your photographs, right? What do you want people to see about you? And all of those things come from the actual story or the message. So you got to get that dialed in first, and then once that development phase is complete, you have every little branding element that you need to go on to that third and final phase.
Which is display. And you would
Okay.
think that this would be intuitive, but it's not. And in fact, we run into it all the time. People are like, well, I'm going to have this is my business Facebook page. This is my business Instagram page. This is my business LinkedIn page, of course, which is all business. But they, and then this is my personal one. And so what we have to try to work in their mind is really it's all one thing, right? We do what you do for a living and how you tend to your clients, no matter what business you're in, that's your life.
Yeah.
And it should be displayed everywhere, because you don't want your clients going to TikTok and seeing one person and then going to Instagram seeing a different person and Facebook seeing a different person when you're trying to get clients from all of those platforms. They need to be concise and the same, and they need to be very consistent.
I was going to say consistency is the key there. I tell my clients all the time, it's consistency over time.
Yes.
And when I see you on Facebook or TikTok or your website or your speech or your podcast, it had better be consistent, right? In how you show up, how you look, how you do everything. So what a great process. And so you are, dare I say, it's a done for you process. Obviously the client's involved, giving the information, but then you're developing everything. And I love this because you're integrating, you're creating a brand, and tell me if I'm wrong here, that actually resonates with their identity. And I think that's where that connection really happens versus a pretty logo that I just bounce off of. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's dead on.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. Because if they don't feel it, if they don't recognize that, hey, this is my identity, if they're not proud of it and they're not feeling it, they're never going to put it out there, thus no results, right?
Yeah.
But if they feel that identity, yes, this is finally my brand is able to articulate who I really am. And this is the one thing that sets me apart from everybody else in my space.
Yeah.
That brings so much confidence. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's a suit you have to wear every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it is, but it's like, it's like your birthday suit. You don't mind wearing it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's comfortable. You got it on all the time.
And that is really the underlying aspect. I talk a lot when I talk to people about going to the ocean. You're standing on the beach, you're looking at, you got the waves coming at you, and everybody loves the waves, and I love the waves. But the waves don't kill you most of the time. It's the current underneath the waves that pull you out and drown you, right? And so many times people think branding is the waves on the top, and it is, but it isn't. It's really that underlying authenticity, consistency to go, this is who I am. Talk about the fear factor involved for many entrepreneurs, speakers to go, but if I do that, ... Help us unpack that one.
Yeah, I actually, it speaks directly to me. I'm talking to all your listeners here that have that fear, because I had that fear. You know,
Mm,
I have been an auctioneer for now 32 years. At the time I met Tonya, like 19, 20 years, I had been doing this in front of some big crowds, right? We had one, I had 10,000 people in the LA Convention Center at one auction, right? So we like would have broke the Guinness World Record if we thought to invite them there. And they, and so I'd had this, but I had never been in front of a camera with a brand,
yeah.
right? Trying to explain to my ideal customer why I'm the perfect person to help them with their problem in the midst of all of these other people that were doing the exact same thing, real estate,
Yeah.
for me. So I was really, and I was like, just put my faith in Tanya. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. But what Tanya taught me was very valuable. She said, look, building your brand is not about saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's about saying, look at what I can do for you.
Mm,
That is the context in which it makes sense. We
yeah.
all have our life experiences, right, that have led us to do what we do, right? Led us to write that book, led us to tell our story. It led us to have a podcast. It led us to be a speaker on stage. It led us to share those things that we have learned. And then the first thing we want to do is like put a mask on and not stand in front of the crowd and not write the book and not tell
Yeah.
the story and not, because we're taught from kids like be humble, don't
Yeah.
make it all about you. Narcissism's bad, all this kind of things that are true, but we also can take them too far in the other direction. Your life experiences that have caused you to do these things are there to help the people that are on the other end, the receiving end of what you're
Yeah.
offering. And they got to know that. And so
100%.
when you put it in that context, it really made a difference for me.
Well, and it's good. You know, it's funny. The guy who's coming to my mind as you talk about all of this is Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
All
Oh,
right. Zig was great at talking about other people and he had his way, right? He had a unique brand for sure,
for sure.
but he didn't shy away from it. And when you go to see Zig, are you going to learn new information? Yeah, probably not. He's going to tell you the same thing he told you about 10 years ago or 15 years ago that's in all of his, but you go because it's Zig and all of that. And you roll that out to any person like that. And you realize they're serving a clientele. They're doing it in their way. And business owners, speakers, entrepreneurs, podcast hosts can do exactly the same thing. Here's where I want you to talk about. And Tanya, you talked a little bit about it when you were in radio sales. When you position yourself properly, you attract people like an electromagnet because they want who you are and what you do.
So true. Positioning, the number one thing it does is eliminate the confusion factor, right? Because if you don't brand yourself and say this is the one thing that I'm known for and I'm really fantastic at helping other people like you with this,
Yeah.
then people will give you an identity. Like, oh, well, that person is just a radio salesperson, right? Instead of, oh, that's one of the greatest radio salespeople because she's really going to focus on taking your blasé messaging that you've got right now and turning it into an advertising that gets people on the at your brick and mortar, right?
Absolutely.
And so there's a big, big difference between those two things. And what I love about that is I feel like not only do you have the privilege of being able to create that for yourself, but you have an obligation to create that for yourself, really. If you want to succeed in business, you are obligated to tell people why they should do business with you. If you don't, you're in what we call the sea of sameness, right? You just look like everybody else, sound like everybody else. It's, a bunch of zombies.
And hoping the phone rings.
Yeah, exactly. And when you have a great brand, people give you other attributes that help trust,
Yes.
integrity, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Because you're consistent with it. And if you can prove it, if you have the social proof, if you have super happy clients, I mean, that's really the outcome that we want. If we've got a lot of clients who say, wow, they really know what they're doing, they have totally transformed my business. And one of the things we love to say about a brand, Michael, is a great brand doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself.
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's the
100%.
internal transformation that happens.
Yeah, and it is that transformation that gives you greater confidence because as Michael said, I'm going to work in my own suit every day. I'm in my own skin. This is who I am, and it impacts. It's in. You had another line somewhere that I said it's you change when you change how you're seen, you can charge what you're worth.
Absolutely. Change how you're seen and charge what you're worth. That's our mantra, really, because one of the things that we found is one of the biggest challenges that coaches, consultants, and experts have is that they at the end of the day, they feel like, I know I'm not charging what I'm really worth. I know I'm not. All that tells me is I haven't defined my worth well enough. Right.
Yeah.
I haven't really put it all together in a way that somebody can look at me and say, oh, wow, yeah, that's all you charge, right?
That's right. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because we look at the people like Tony Robbins. He's got $100,000 a year mastermind, or he charges $20,000 for this 3-day event, and you go, is he really worth it? It's like, well, obviously because people buy it, yes, for them. How can you embody that? And going back to what you said earlier, Michael, about the brand consistency, whether Tony's on stage or whether he's in a T-shirt or in bare feet, it doesn't matter. You get Tony.
Always.
And that is what we're talking about. And all right, so let's pause for a second, because there are some speakers, there are some business owners going, but I'll never be as big as Tony. It's like, you don't need to be. You need to have the right brand for your audience.
Right. Exactly. He's worth like $600 million. I mean, you could live on 100.
Exactly.
You could live on 50.
Yeah.
You have to be as big as Tony.
Right.
You can make more money than you can spend.
Right. Right. Actually, a lady said to me the other day, I'm not as big as some of the clients you have. You've got some world record holders. You have some like major players in your. I said, hold on just a minute. I said, every one of those people, some may be more known on a national scale, some may only be known in their region or within a certain specific ideal client type or so forth. I said, all that really needs to happen is the person who needs your help the most, you need them to know who you are, right? And it doesn't matter how big or how small that is. It depends on what your goals are. And if your goals are to help this specific type of person, you can be phenomenal and so well known in that genre that nobody can touch you.
Right.
And it can be the difference between, 1,000 people knowing who you are and 1,000,000 people knowing who you are. And the result for that person is the same based on their own goals. Are you reaching your goals? I can tell you that one of the presentations we did, probably the best one in terms of outcome, we presented in front of 16 people and walked away with 6 clients.
Yeah.
16 people.
Yeah.
Right?
6 clients.
Yeah.
It's because and we've known this for years, like vanity metrics don't matter. Right. It doesn't matter how many followers we have client after client after client after client that has 50,000 followers, 100,000 followers, right? 200,000 followers, but they can't make money with it, because it's one thing to have people that are following you. It's another thing to have a business.
That's right.
And Tonya has said for years and years and years, I'd rather just have 50 people in a room that need my service, and I'm going to walk away with sales out of it, than 5,000 people in a room that don't need anything that I'm offering.
That's right.
And that's what a great brand does for you, right? It not only points you to that ideal customer, it gives that ideal customer a way to find you and to read about you, because we live in that world. They're going to check you out long before they call you, long before they reach out for an appointment, long before they're going to look you up on social media. They're going to look at your website. They're going to look at all those places your brand has to show up and your story has to be told. And then they're going to reach out to you. Well, if you do it correctly, by the time they reach out to you, they're pretty much already convinced this is the person that I need.
Right? Yeah. I heard a stat the other day, and I can't remember who it came from. And I'm pretty sure they said that statistically, it was like 80% or 85% of the people have done all that research. They have already made the buying decision to work with you before they actually connect with you. And when I saw that, I went, wow, yeah, that's absolutely true.
That's true.
And match it with this, Michael. 98% of people will actually meet your brand before they ever meet you. Oh, yeah. So imagine how much of that work the brand has to carry. Yeah. You and I, all of us, everybody listening, you can only be so many places in a given week where you're voice to voice or face to face with somebody, carrying on a conversation about doing business together.
Right.
100% of the time, your brand is out there working for you even while you sleep. So that brand had better represent you in the manner in which you would show up yourself. Right. So it's that soldier that works for you 24/7. And if that's not dialed in, then you're missing so much. The goal of a brand, its number one goal is to precede you. And the goal is you want people to be familiar with you and what you stand for before you ever even enter the room.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's an email for you. So should you fire your brand because it's not working for you?
Love it.
I love it.
It's probably doing worse for you than anything. Okay, so this all sounds amazing. It also sounds like, oh, that's going to take forever. And I don't have time for this. Let's talk about the time frame of, somebody comes to you, they start with you. What are you talking about as far as just transforming, honestly, their world in how they present themselves with a great brand?
Oh, that's such a great question.
That is a good one.
It depends on the particular branding program you're in, but top to bottom, the longest time that it takes is 12 weeks. Here's the good part. You don't have to wait until all 12 weeks are complete before you start putting that brand out there. You can start putting that brand out there in week 1 and just layer and layer and layer and build upon it, right? One of the greatest stories is there was a lady who was doing business with us in upstate New York. This happened about 8 or 9 years ago. She called me one day and she said, "Look, Tonya, I know we're only beginning my journey and I'm not even like 2.5 weeks into this." She said, "But I started introducing myself with my elevator pitch and my new, tagline." She said, "And just that alone," she said, "people's eyes are opening up and they say, 'Oh my gosh, that's what you do. That's exactly where I am in my life right now.'" And as a result, now she happened to be a real estate professional. She had been in real estate 21 years and had never sold $1 million property in upstate New York. That very month, she sold her first $1 million property, and we weren't even finished with her brand yet. So it really is. I always like to address it this way too. Time is not the determining factor of the success of a brand. Let's say this, Michael, I could put together the most perfect brand for you. And in 2 years from now, if you don't put that brand out there everywhere, if you don't live it and breathe it, guess what's going to happen? Absolutely nothing. You're not going to change one iota. And 2 years has passed by. So time is not the success factor, right? The success factor is utilization. It is exposure, right? How many times do you expose people to your brand? When you shake somebody's hand, do you introduce yourself that way? In an email, do you introduce yourself that way? Is it everywhere that somebody could potentially come into contact with you? How often are you living, breathing, and using it? That determines the success. And the people that are putting it out there more often and breathing it, those are the ones who are successful.
Yeah. That is so good, because so many times when you meet somebody, so, "Hey, Michael, what do you do? Or who are you?" "Well, I am the founder of, and I've been doing this." "Tanya, who are you?" Right? But when you find somebody who captures you with something, it causes them to go, "Oh, tell me more about that." And now I've got a conversation with somebody, and guess what? They're going to remember. They're going to remember me because I was different from everybody else.
Absolutely.
And I love how you layered, a message. Then you've got your did you call them brand bites? Is that what you call them?
Sound bites. It's kind of a nod back to my media days, right?
Yes.
Like when you say tune in at 6 o'clock for whatever, right? This is tune in. These are the highlights of my brand. If you want to know more, go deeper. But if your ideal customers only read those highlights, they're going to know 90% of the things about you that are going to make them make a decision as to whether or not to contact you.
Right. And then I presume that when they contact you and you're on that call, because you've done all of this work with the client and understand their ideal audience, they're going to naturally say these same words as they're communicating with a prospect, let's say, because that's just natural. It's come through. It's not like they have to learn this new vocabulary necessarily, because it's that right? Is that how it works?
No, it's dead on. Yeah. Yeah, you can take that messaging and it's almost like Tanya's team will put it into a box for you, right? And so it's always there and it will refine the way you say it. One of the things that we love the most about working with our clients is when she does a brand reveal and then they go, "What? That's me?" that what, you know, like
Yeah.
that, and they're impressed with their own story for the first time in their life. I
Yes.
mean, and there's been times actually, there's been some tears shed over it
A lot of
because
times,
it's
most times.
because you see this
Yeah.
like this revelation come over them that is their life. Like
Yeah.
they did those things, they overcame that, or they conquered this, or they, and it has led them to what they're wanting to do. And now Tanya's team has built that into a brand and articulated into words that matter to people, that they, you know, that's not what they do, right? They do whatever their craft is, whatever their book is, whatever their TED Talk is, whatever their podcast is about. That their life led them to that, and Tanya's life led her to be a branding expert that helps pull that out of people. You know, one of the best things that ever was, she had a guy say, Tonya, will you make me a star? And she said, we don't make stars here, we unveil them.
Oh, I love that
Yeah,
because
because he's the star.
it's
He's
there.
already got the experience that led him to help all the people he's going to help. She
Right.
just unveiled that for
Well,
everybody.
and I love that, and because everyone listening, business owner, speaker, what it doesn't, you have that stardom inside of you, but
Mhm.
it's covered. It's
Yeah.
it's latent. You're not using it, and dare I say, it's going to be really hard for them to figure that out on your own,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of working with Tonya and her team and Michael, because they can see inside of you. They hear things through their process, and then they're wordsmiths at one level to be
Mhm.
able to craft the message after they discover it. So I dare I say you're a lot like me. And that's scary. In that I don't create book titles and messages for my clients. I discover them from what they tell me. You're doing the same thing, and then you just amplify it so that star shines brightly. Fair?
Mhm. Fair, well, fair.
Yeah.
We'd like to say you can't read the label when you're the one inside the jar, and that's
Absolutely.
that's for all of us,
Yeah.
every one of us.
Yeah. And, and
Yeah.
and we're so close to it. And I think most business owners think my story's not important. Nobody cares. And I've told everybody I talk to, no, that is not true. I don't care if you're a dog lover, a cat lover. You have a story that will connect with your audience and resonate and
Mhm.
make you a human that I want to work with. I want to be.
Amen.
Every single
It's a
time.
great way to put it.
Perfectly put.
That's the truth. And we run into another question that we get a lot from people is, okay, I've built this business, or I already have this trajectory that I'm on.
Hmm?
Should I be building my personal brand, or shouldn't I be building my business brand? And
Yeah,
Tanya's answers is classic, and it's awesome. She's like, which came first? And of course, it's always them. And
that's
she's
right.
build your personal brand, because that is what led to anything else that you're doing.
Yeah,
Anything else. It started with
Yeah.
you, your life experiences, and those things are important. And it's funny how, like, society puts things in their mind. Like, if you go all the way to Wall Street, right, where they deal in trillions of dollars, billions of dollars, they're moving money around, this stuff, right? And they're going to have an IPO, and that IPO comes out, and this company's been in business for 10 years already, and they've got this track record, and they've got all of this, and now they're putting in their board together, and they're pulling in their CFO, and they're pulling in their COO, and they're pulling in their CIO, and they're pulling all the, and they're chairman of the board, and they're going to put this board together. What do? They put out a biography of the experience of every one of those power players, and why you need to invest in their IPO, because they know what they're doing. That's called a brand.
that's right.
That's called a
Personal brand.
brand. That's
Yeah.
called a personal brand.
It
Right?
totally is. Yeah.
Yeah. And we just don't name it that until it comes to a different level, and then all of a sudden, that's really the definition of what we're doing. Whether you're a one person shop, or whether you really are building that company that's going to grow into the next IPO.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you're a speaker and you're trying to get speaking gigs, how much better is it to reverse engineer that and get your bio, your brand out there so that the event planners and the companies are going, you know what? Next year we want to have Michael and Tanya come because we know who they are and all of that, because now they're reaching out to you and they're drawing you in because of who you are, because of the brand, the identity that's been created, because you were smart enough to work with Brandface. Um, what are we missing? How does somebody, this is honestly pretty new to my audience. I think they've heard me preach it for years, positioning and branding, but
Right.
I do it in a little tiny aspect. And that's why I love that we've got connected, because you amplify it and take it to a different stratosphere, a different orbit, let's say, since they're stars, right? But it's accessible to everyone, and that's the thing. And in your market, every market's competitive. The one that gets to the top isn't the better salesperson or the one who has the better widget all the time. It's usually the better brand.
Absolutely.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So how can you help our audience? Where should they go? They're out here listening to this because this is not another, dare I say, Facebook campaign or LinkedIn outreach thing or a Google Ads thing. Those are all well and good, but you do this first, and I will assure you, all that other stuff's going to work so much better.
Mhm.
Where do they find more information about y'all and what you do, and how do they take those next steps?
I think probably the easiest way to do that, if you're ready, if you're listening to this and you think, well, my brand could use some work and I know it's not representing me, should I fire my brand, as Michael DeLon says? You need to go to discussyourbrand.com, and that will allow you to schedule a time with us, and let's look at what you have going on, and let's figure out a game plan and see if there's a fit, right? Discussyourbrand.com. That's the place to go.
Awesome. I'm going to have that in the show notes, but there's a marketing principle right there. We can do a whole show just on that. Did you hear the domain that they have? Discuss your brand. Because guess what? When you get on that call, guess what you're going to do? You're going to discuss your brand. So folks, I hope you have really simple, powerful, memorable domains like discussyourbrand.com. That's brilliant, by the way. And I
Thank you.
presume that you're like me, that when you bring a client in, you look at their domains. I just got a new client. I looked at his domain. I'm like, that is not going to work. And so in our process, he doesn't know this yet. We're going to pivot his brand because it's not memorable.
Right.
You have to be able to look at what you do from an outside perspective, and there's not a better two sets of eyes on earth that I know of than Tonya and Michael to look at your brand, look at your business, and discover your story and help you tell it in a powerful, compelling way that's super consistent. Folks, I'm just like stoked. I am so excited, A, to have you here, but B, that to as we forge a partnership together and just help more people. I know the impact it's going to have because everybody has a story they need to tell. They just don't know how to get there, and you're going to help them tell it, but develop that personal brand that takes them to all new levels. So, Tonya, Michael, thank you. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you for doing what you do and just for showing up with such passion.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you, Michael. And I have
like-minded.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I was going to say. It's such a pleasure. It's actually a great honor to be aligned with you, because when people come in and they have their brand done, it's their unique story, right? But that's not all the story. They have so much more of that story to tell. And there's nothing greater in terms of establishing credibility than having your own book. Right. And when you do that, it's a credibility tool just like no other. We can attest to that. And you guys are like no other in that aspect. And so we highly recommend you guys. And there's a reason we're aligned, and we're very, very grateful for that.
Absolutely. This has been a tremendous interview, talk, and just time of sharing. Thank you both for what you do. I'm going to grab all that information. We'll throw it in the show notes. Discussyourbrand.com is the place to go to have that conversation and let Tonya and Michael just work their magic and reveal the star that's within you. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening to Experts Speak. God bless.